Black patriarch.
Lord.
We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. I never want to leave this place. We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. I feel like I'm lost in space.
America is the land of immigrants, despite what you might hear in some political contexts now. But we're going to be focusing specifically on black immigrants in New York City. First slide up here, I can let you know about immigration demographics. There are some 3.8 million foreign-born blacks who now live in the United States. Now, the number of African-born immigrants has doubled every 10 years since 1980. And from 1980 to 2013, the percentage of foreign-born blacks among the overall black population rose from about 3.1% to 8.7%.
I spend all day wasting my time. I just want to lose my mind. We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. I really don't know what to do.
New York State, we happen to be home to the largest population of black immigrants anywhere in the country. And by 2016, the projections say that the U.S. black population will be some 16.5% foreign-born.
We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. Ignore everything around you.
Here's one more statistic for you. The most recent Census Bureau estimates say that between 2010 and 2013, black immigrants accounted for 25% of the growth in America's overall black population. 25% of the growth in America's overall black population.
We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. I feel like I'm lost in space.
With all that as context, the brand new Black Immigrant Engagement Initiative was formed, and here to tell us what it hopes to achieve are Hadia Harrison, Project Manager at the New York Immigration Coalition. Welcome to BK Live.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And Carl Lipscomb, Policy and Legal Manager at Black Alliance for Just Immigration. And Carl, it is so good to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hadia, can you start us off with the conversation about, what was the need for this coalition, and why did it take until 2016 for it to come about?
Coming in 2016, the topic of specifically serving these communities is based off of the need of, or the reasoning of what it means to be black in America today. And that includes immigration, and that has often been a conversation that has not been a part of the black experience in America. And I think currently in 2016, we are now seeing that as being a more visible issue within black communities.
We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. I really don't know what to do.
You're going to have this massive influx of immigrants into the country. But you got public policies in this country that are equating them to black folk. They're equating them to black, and what we've allowed them to do starting in 1970 is to wrap themselves in black folks' suffering and pretend somehow they suffered along with black folk.
Like black Americans, black immigrants face challenges when it comes to mass criminalization. Black immigrants tend to live in communities that are heavily policed. Black immigrants tend to live in communities that face mass incarceration at dramatic rates. And when it comes to the immigration system, black immigrants are both detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement and deported at higher rates than their counterparts of other nationalities.
We're in La La Land, we're in La La Land. Ignore everything around you.
How do we move the issues of black immigrants more to the front politically? Because we talk about immigrant groups coming and establishing numbers and getting on that ladder to political power when there are mostly African-American-born folks who are politically in power. How do we get the issues of these immigrants to the fore?
We're bringing together black-led and black immigrant serving organizations with legal service providers that will also do advocacy around issues impacting Black immigrants. So when we thought of this project, there's a need for legal services in Black immigrant communities, and that's widely recognized. But there's also just a need to expand the voice of Black immigrants just broadly in New York City, such that Black immigrants as a whole can really have an impact on issues that affect them day to day.
Video games, cell phones, texting, Facebook, YouTube, fun, fun.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
This was
Thank you.
enlightening.
Numbers, by 2060?
Yeah.
Wow.
Stay on it.
If Black people, dark-skinned people were to ever get their shit together, and that they're going to be promoting dark-skinned men and dark-skinned women all over the place, and light-skinned women are going to be made to feel less than or ugly or unattractive, and light-skinned men are going to be made to feel, that they're the threat, because they're closer to white folks, sooner or later, though, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen to the light-skinned people in the Black community. So what you would have to do is you would have to exclude them and promote nothing but, dark-skinned Black male masculinity, handsomeness, intelligence, Black men with power, they got Terrence Howard playing, Empire and everything. Notice it ain't no super dark-skinned Black ass nigga, that put that shit together. Nah, it's gotta be the nigga with the green eyes. How many people have examined that show like that? Not many. The move would be Black men getting with Black women, producing Black children, bringing in some Africans who got blacker genes, or bringing in some Caribbean Blacks or some Haitians who got some blacker genes, and making it blacker and blacker and blacker and blacker and blacker, to the point where, it's not an issue anymore. People are clearly identifiable as Black, and, everybody's the same color and same texture of hair and same features, and you don't have those issues anymore about identity. That would be the move. So I'm going to do this video over again, and I'm going to talk about self-hatred in the Black community. I should say the global Black community. Although other Black people, especially those East Africans, they love to deny their inferiority complex to non-Blacks, but also superiority complex to other Blacks.
I'm Christina Greer, Dr. Christina Greer, as they say. And I want to thank Laura for putting this together, and Shelley for Caribbean, and the museum. I send my students here all the time, and I have to say this is my first time coming. It won't be my last. And I'm fascinated because there's a lot of conversation about immigration, but I consider myself a JB. Does everyone here know what a JB is? Just black, right? So when people say, well, where are you from? And I say, oh, you know, I was born in New York, raised in Illinois. They're like, no, where are you from, right? Many of you, I'm sure, have gotten the from question. I'm like, well, my parents are from Florida. My mom's from northern Florida. My dad's from Miami. It's like, no, I mean, where are they from? It's like, and so then you go through your lineage and then you realize you're just a JB, right? And so for those of you who've gone to college, for those of you who've been a part of the BSA and also the Afro-Caribbean Association, you realize there is a tension sometimes because I'm 10th generation American, right?
So why did he need a black director? Could a white director not have?
It's not
produced this
color,
work?
it's culture.
Explain the difference, because I think we're in
Steven
a space
Spielberg
right
did Schindler's List.
now. Mm-hmm.
Martin Scorsese did Goodfellas, right? Steven Spielberg could direct Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, but they're cultural differences. You know, I know, you know, we all know what it is when a hot comb hits your hair on a Sunday morning, what it smells like.
Huh?
That's a cultural difference, not just a color difference.
All right.
So it's the culture.
You know about a hot comb scenario?
No, she don't know about no
looking-
hot comb.
Because that's,
You
that's
don't know.
old
You
school.
don't know nothing about.
Dax.
See how everybody laughed? That's a cultural difference. That's not a race difference. That's just that motion. That's all I gotta say, right?
I know what a hot comb is.
Okay.
All right. The space that we're in, culture versus race, and how important it is, you know, where we are right now as a culture, as an American family. You're producing a film that's culturally germane to a particular time and a particular people.
Marcus Garvey wanted to return African Americans to Africa to create a vibrant black nation, empowered through economic independence. Although some of his goals were controversial, his crusade would inspire leaders from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela.
Garvey was certainly a controversial figure, but the concepts that we now think of as black nationalism and black pride started with Garvey's pronouncements.
Although Garvey was a flawed leader, he's someone who is really important to the history of the black radical tradition. He was probably one of the strongest voices of black nationalism in history.
Also, during the first half of the 20th century, black intellectuals such as Sylvester Williams, W.E.B. Du Bois, and George Padmore organized a series of Pan-African conferences which called for the elimination of colonialist domination in Africa, whether in Mozambique or Philadelphia or Alabama. We suffer from the same oppression and exploitation. Common oppression demands a common solution. On May 27th, 60,000 black people demonstrated the solidarity which we have for our brothers and sisters waging armed national liberation struggles on the continent. This massive demonstration of African solidarity proved to be the largest of its kind since those organized by the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the 1920s.
America's blacks were no longer in hiding. They were on the march, proud of their color and of their origins, with their African clothes and their afro hair, and with a funky extravagance that told the white man to go to hell with his good taste, his suits, and his morals.
We want to let the whole world know that we are going to pick our heroes from today on.
The black body was on show everywhere, increasingly unclothed, more and more voluptuous, more and more free. And this liberty was a declaration, an insolent affirmation of the individuality of a whole people.
Although thousands of our people showed support for these national liberation struggles on May 27th, there are still millions of us who fail to realize the importance of Africa. Part of the answer to this important problem of identification was pointed out by Brother Malcolm X in his last recorded speech.
Up until 1959, Africa was dominated by the colonial powers, and by the colonial powers of Europe having complete control over Africa, they projected the image of Africa negatively. They projected Africa always in a negative light. Jungle, savages, cannibals, nothing civilized. And naturally, it was so negative until it was negative to you and me. And you and I began to hate it. We didn't want anybody to tell us anything about Africa, much less call us an African. And in hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself.
Africa under siege.
All right.
I have maintained that for 3,000 years, Africa has been under siege.
It up for you and give it back to you. Make sure that you get the right copy of everything. But I have to protect them. Not that anything could happen to them, but as you can see, they don't do it. And they know I've argued with them. These are my friends.
Our Harlem community come out and hear that. One of the major issues that our people, actually the major weapon of warfare against African people on this planet today is real simple. They're trying to disgender our people and turn us into homosexuals.
So he can fondle her over in Europe. Thomas Jefferson, the great statesman. You see? And one of his half-black children that was born of him raping a woman ran away.
The greatest event in television history continues. With Roots, the next generations.
You got to know where you come from.
I found you, Kunta Kinte!
White man is European and black man is African.
Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, lived a handsome prince.
I want a woman that's going to arouse my intellect as well as my loins.
Where will you find such a woman?
In America.
Coming to America.
Like what Kobe and Malika said, I suggest we ask Hillman to put Orange Glow on a timetable to withdraw from South Africa.
The problem is their timetable is not the same as ours.
This West African coastline is where millions of people were shipped out as slaves to the Americas. Well, it's 200 years since Britain abolished its slave trade, but the impact has never ended. Now, thousands of descendants of those Africans sent out in chains are coming home to the land of their ancestors. Many African Americans come here as a spiritual pilgrimage, never intending to stay. They came of age in the heady civil rights struggle of the 1960s, amid a growing sense of Pan-African nationalism. Their children thought they were crazy.
Well, they were angry for a long time. That hurt. That really, really hurt. But the opportunity to return to the land of one's ancestors, to be able to make that real connection with who it is that you are, your true identity, the sacrifice of family was worth it.
Kilometers long. It's meant to separate Kenya and Somalia from point 1 up here in Mandera down to Kionga in Lamu County. Kenya says the wall will secure their porous shared border and keep terrorists out.
The government insists the construction of the wall will go on despite protests by the Somali president.
We are building the wall on our side. This is Kenyan territory where we are now. Anything above beyond this point is Somalia. We're not building any wall in Somalia, we're building our wall in Kenya.
According to Interior Ministry spokesperson Mwenda Njoka, the wall won't be purely a 800-kilometer brick and mortar affair. Rather, according to Njoka, it will include a physical wall made of steel and concrete, some sections of barbed electric fence, and deep trenches on the outward side of the border.
Just last month, 35-year-old Mozambican Ernesto Alfabeto Namoave was burnt to death in a mob attack. The attacks are being driven by resentment towards new immigrants, who many poor South Africans believe are taking away their jobs and housing. As the violence has escalated, so too has the desperation amongst the immigrants being hunted.
Somalians, foreigners, they have guns, AK-47.
There was word that foreign nationals are contributing to crime in South Africa. Is it only them that are contributing to crime? Aren't we South Africans also contributing to crime?
These people are not paying tax. These people are not paying tax. They're selling illegal stuff. They're corrupt our children.
We are always working hard for our children, for our parents. But these guys don't pay tax. We pay tax.
I think you have to have heart. You have to have, humanity. But you have to address the situation of those kids born here.
It's this strong comment made by Haitian Ambassador Antonio Rodrigue during Monday's edition of the Bahamas Tonight that has outright offended many Bahamians who are now calling for the Haitian diplomat to be recalled immediately.
In our country, we are doing them a favor, right? And by doing them a favor, they're supposed to humble.
They need to go back where they're from, and they're too bigoty.
The Haitians have their country, the Bahamians have their country, and it is our country, and we could decide how we want to run our affairs.
How our government could give them privilege to have Flag Day in the Bahamas. On top of that, they have actually disfigured our flag by burning it. They also had parades for their various leaders in the Bahamas.
When most of them come here, they've already gotten everything free. I mean, and some of them are they owned restaurants and fruit stands and all of this stuff. Why not have them pay their own ticket back?
When you come into this country legal, then you have your children, they born here illegal. You understand? It becomes now a burden on the country that they exist in.
And while the public outcry on the Haitian ambassador's comments continue to mount even on social media, Immigration Department officials continue to spread the message that if you are not legally living or working here in the Bahamas, you must return to your homeland. Additionally, there are many Bahamians who feel that governments of the day took far too long to deal with this immigration problem, which has enabled illegal migrants to feel that they are more than equal in this country.
Let's get them old dashikis y'all love so much. Come on. Y'all just as silly as you could be. Take one trip to Africa and your eyes will open up. Go to the Sudan. 60 ethnic groups live in the Sudan. 60. And some of them is in slavery under other Africans. 60. And them 60 groups all hate each other. All got different languages. All got different cultures. They ain't sitting around in one happy family. The only people you can tell that story to is somebody who don't believe in who don't know who they are. You couldn't tell that story to somebody who know who they are.
I was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. But my parents, they were born in Nigeria. First of all, I want to also state that Africans are not all the same people. It's not like the United States, you know what I'm saying, where everybody is one people and we call ourselves all Americans or whatever. In Africa, they have different countries, you know what I'm saying? So you have different people and within these countries, you know what I'm saying, they have different peoples within the country. You know what I'm saying? Nigeria have over 200 different dialects, you know what I'm saying? Whereas though you have some people that speak Yoruba, you got some people that speak Hausa, you got some people that speak Igbo, you know what I'm saying? And then they have their little sub dialects, you know what I'm saying? Even my people are Yoruba people, but they speak Undo, you know what I'm saying? That's a different dialect from Yoruba, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of understanding that you have to, when you deal with Africans. People are not taught these things, you know what I'm saying? You don't know, you know what I'm saying? And as far as the Caucasians in this land, they have put everybody into one big group, and they put us all into Africans, you know what I'm saying? And that's a total error right there, you know what I'm saying? It's totally wrong, you know what I mean? Because people are different. You know what I mean? You have different tribes, you have different religions, you have different backgrounds and different cultures, you know what I mean? So you can't just group everybody up in one big bulk and say they all one people, because it doesn't work like that, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the way we look at immigration is that you can't talk about immigration unless you talk about racism and globalization and the impact that that has had on all our communities. It's clear from the debate and the discourse on immigration that there's a white supremacist framework. And in fact, when we talk about, in the media, they talk about, quote unquote, the browning of America and the threat to Anglo-Saxon culture. You see that a racist discourse is being consolidated in a right-wing white supremacist core is being developed that threatens not only immigrants but African Americans.
So the major problem with the anti-immigrant movement is that it undermines and effectively reverses the gains of the civil rights movement. African Americans historically fought for their rights in this country, and what we're seeing is that the same forces that fought so hard to oppress African Americans are now extending their fight to immigrants, and primarily immigrants of color.
It really bothers me when we talk about Hispanics. These people come over here, they work their asses off, they don't get paid, and they're working for white people. Now white people are coming back now and saying, we need to get rid of all of them.
Right. Look, I think they should just go home. We should have white people doing these jobs. But this idea that we're just gonna bring in millions of day laborers and pay them $2 an hour because we don't want to get our hands dirty. I would rather hire black people, to be honest. They're Native American citizens.
Before he joined the Trump campaign, Bannon ran the far-right website Breitbart, where he hosted a daily radio show. Bannon has expressed a desire to keep all foreign-born people out of the U.S. Legal immigrants are just as problematic, if not more, than those who are here illegally.
Isn't the beating heart of this problem right now, the real beating heart of it, of what we got to get sorted here, is not illegal immigration, as horrific as that is, and it's horrific? Don't we have a problem? We've looked the other way on this legal immigration that's kind of overwhelmed the country. When you look and it's got 61 million, 20% of the country is immigrants.
Right, yeah.
My name is Talmadge W. Fair. I'm better known as T. Willard Fair by those who know me. If one would do an analysis of what has happened in terms of black prosperity, both politically, socially, and economically, one would have to conclude that the presence of both legal immigrants and illegal immigrants has adversely impacted our ability to move forward. When I came to Miami, for example, way back in 1963, all of the jobs, not a few of the jobs, but all of the jobs in the hotel, motel, restaurant industry were occupied by blacks. 40 years later, all of those jobs are occupied by, quote unquote, immigrants, both legal and illegal. What has happened is it's about supply and demand. Labor is about supply and demand. So if there is an employer who has one job and there are 50 people who are unemployed, then who's in control of that employer? And if 25 of those people happen to look like me and 25 of those people are illegal, then those illegals, by virtue of being here, would do anything to stay here. I'm already here. Therefore, I have certain credentials that allow me not to take those jobs. So it's not that we don't want those jobs. It's that the jobs do not pay a wage that makes any sense. There's no lack of understanding about the impact of illegal immigration on our life. What is the problem is that we don't want to violate the sociological treatise of being in partnership with other folks. We have been conditioned to believe that if we criticize others who may be in similar sets of circumstances like us, then we have betrayed the downtrodden, the disadvantaged, and the disenfranchised. If you talk to most black people, if not all black people, off the record, they feel as strongly, as passionately about this issue as I do. What they don't have is the courage and the commitment that's necessary to stand up and say, this is the way I feel. If you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine.
Well, the push against illegal immigration is often attacked as a racist effort by white Americans to keep out non-white immigrants. But one black civil rights advocate says, in fact, the biggest victims of low-wage illegal labor are black men in this country who see their own job opportunities dry up and their own wages undercut. Peter Kirsanow is a member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. He was also a candidate for President Trump's Secretary of Labor, and he joins us now. Peter, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a position you don't hear very much, but makes a kind of intuitive sense. Unpack it, if you would. What do you mean when you say that black men in America are the biggest victims of this?
Sure. Well, just to give you a little bit of background, we've conducted at least 3 hearings over the last 6 years of the Civil Rights Commission on this discrete issue. And we had a number of experts testify. We deduced a lot of information with respect to the economic impact of illegal immigration on low-skilled workers generally. And all of the witnesses, all of the experts that we had who spanned the ideological spectrum, they may have disagreed in terms of the degree of the impact, but all of them concurred that illegal immigration has a devastating impact on wage levels and employment levels, and it's Econ 101, Tucker. When you have an oversupply of labor, the price of labor is going to be depressed. And also, we have an oversupply of low-skilled labor, and what happens is black males are disproportionately concentrated in the low-skilled labor market, disproportionately have only high school diplomas, and over the last about 20 years or so, the bulk of our immigration, or both legal and illegal, has been on the low-skilled side. So we have an oversupply of low-skilled labor. It has a particularly magnified effect among black males who are in that cohort. I think it's a 40% of the 18-point decline in labor force participation rates among black males is attributable to the oversupply of illegal immigration labor competing with them. So we're talking about, at the very low end, hundreds of thousands of blacks losing jobs, probably, if you do the math, up to 1.2 million blacks losing jobs. This has significant, obviously, impacts on the black community. Got in touch with the Congressional Black Caucus, sent them detailed information on this, asked them to do something about it, to respond to us, to engage in this effort. My assistant repeatedly would follow up on this. What we heard were crickets. Did the same thing with President Barack Obama, crickets again. And this isn't some minor matter. When we're talking about a labor force participation rate of 61.8%, an appalling labor force participation rate among black males, and again, family formation rates are affected by this, incarceration rates are affected by this. This may be one of the top issues facing the black community, but I've heard silence, but worse than silence, frankly. We've seen Congressional Black Caucus and many others embrace the open borders philosophy that's done such damage to black employment prospects.
Newly confirmed Health Secretary Dr. Ben Carson made a crazy statement on his first day on the job. The only black member of President Trump's cabinet actually compared slaves to immigrants during a speech to employees at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Slaves built this nation for free, and I'm sick and tired of Republicans and their conservative friends trying to somehow rewrite the history books. It is what it is. Slaves are not immigrants.
And what I'm telling you is that they're not coming in here to be your partner or your ally. They're coming in to compete with you. And your black organization and your black leadership in this country is afraid to teach black folk how to compete with all these other groups. And they're afraid because they keep trying to create allies with them. You cannot ally with anybody who's planning on supplanting you.
I miss you, bro. What's up? Good. Yo, this is my brother right here. He used to work down there a block away from where I used to live at. And that's the guy who knows the meaning of bang. That's what I'm talking about. Yo, look, man, I'm an immigrant. And what you black bitches did to me that work in the offices of African-American politicians, I will have none of you black nigger bitches console me in any way, shape, or fucking fashion, because I'm a soldier, see? Until I fucking conquer you. And you're laying at my feet, kissing that shit. I will not allow you to console me until I have conquered you.
When I was debating Schultz, talking about how Africans are allowed here, how Africans are allowed and they can be deported anytime the white supremacists feel like it, which I was right. But there were some Africans or some people acting like they were African. They might not have been, they may have been, I don't know, but they might have been real Africans online. Kind of trying to debunk me. That I am African. We're not allowed, we work hard. You niggas over there do not work hard. You lazy akatas, you do not work. We value work. No white supremacy. You got to get up early and work hard. The white man, we do not think about him. We work hard, we value education and work. Okay, hard work. Prince of Zamunda, and I'm not shitting on my African brothers, much love, but damn, what's going on now? Hard work. Your hard work and all, the white supremacists are like, no, you can't come here.
Let's speak on the stereotypes that African immigrants, some, I'm going to say some, not all, some African immigrants feel about African Americans. What are these stereotypes?
So I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you, and this is, I feel like this is the way that we bridge the gap, is by talking about, what it is, and this is the truth, honestly. So I would say that, off my guess, 90% of first generationers, so people whose parents are African but they themselves were born here, I would say, as far as my female friends, I would say about 90% of their parents do not want them dating someone who's black, and I think that in their parents' minds, they have these misconceptions about black people based on what they see in the media. And a lot of these African parents have not ever interacted with black people outside of maybe work. And a lot of Africans honestly experience discrimination from, sadly, our own people. So I think it's a combination of what we see in the media and then, what African immigrants experience, which, their perception of blacks is that they're lazy, they always have their hand out. They are, they're not ambitious, they're on welfare. So a lot of this rhetoric that is put forth by white people about blacks is a lot of what Africans adopt. And there's this disassociation. Africans don't see themselves as black. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not black. That's those people. But to white people, we're the same. We're one and the same. We're all the same people. White people don't really differentiate between, oh, Nigerian and black and this and that. So I think that a lot of these negative perceptions about black people, Africans have adopted for whatever reason. So a lot of African parents don't want their daughters dating or marrying black guys.
Hello, my name is Desiree. I am 24 years old. I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I came to the United States when I was 17 to go to college. And I want to talk about how I feel about the racial tension in the United States as someone who sort of grew up without it and grew up with lots of different colored faces around me and didn't really think about it. So I will start off with the fact that I never really saw myself as a black person growing up. I still don't. Of course, if someone asks me if I'm black, of course I'm black in terms of, you know, how society uses a term to describe someone with a certain skin color. I don't really care about that. But a lot of the people that I meet in America who are from America, who were raised here and are black, mostly black people, really ever bring this up with me because I think they assume that I share their beliefs or perspectives. They see black as, you know, who they are and their identity. And if you're not acknowledging their struggle or the struggle of their ancestors or, you know, the struggle of black people, then I don't know, I guess you are naive or you don't really care about that history or you are not acknowledging them. You know, I'm not saying race is not important in Jamaica, but it's just not as important. Like, people don't care about it as much. And a lot of the black people that I meet here, I am in the Northeast. I actually have not encountered that many, like, had actual conversations or there's an orange light, or developed friendships with people. But for the ones that I have, it's always very, very similar, and I feel as if I cannot relate to a lot of them.
Hey guys, my name is Josephine, and today I'll be talking about the economic inequalities that pervade the black community in the United States. Now, if you still think racism is the reason why black Americans are not doing so well, let's break down black Americans to ethnicity. The average household income in the United States is roughly $51,000. Nigerian Americans, on the other hand, their income is about $62,000 a year. They have a much lower dropout rate, and 17% of all Nigerian Americans have a master's degree. So is racism selective to regional origin? Does a Klansman ask a black person where they're from before deciding whether or not to hate them? Obviously not. It's a deadly cycle keeping black Americans down. I mean, if you look at the stats by ethnicity, Nigerian Americans have a similar household income to white Americans. So what makes other black ethnicities different? Well, the culture is different. I'm Nigerian and my parents immigrated here with no money and basically started from scratch. I mean, but now they're doing very well. They infused in my brain since I was a kid that hard work and education is the only way to make it in life.
So the average profile of a black immigrant nowadays is predominantly coming out of Africa currently. They have the highest rate of immigration. I think they're about middle-aged, male, highly educated. Most of them are proficient in English. They are above poverty rate in comparison to African Americans. And economically, their employment rates are also a little higher than African Americans here in this country.
I wrote a blog post about the relationship between African Americans, and it started from somebody tweeting me and saying they heard the word akata and can I tell them what it means and if I use it. So the word akata is what a lot of West Africans, Nigerians, Ghanaians use to describe African Americans or to just refer to African Americans. And at its base, it actually means wild animal. So I was talking about how when I got here when I was 9, coming to the US, it was like a complete culture shock. And I actually hadn't heard about slavery until I came to the US. I hadn't heard about the Middle Passage. They didn't teach me that in Nigeria. So coming to the US is when I actually started understanding race too, because I didn't know about race in Nigeria because we were the default. Everybody's black. So we have to talk about race in class because everyone looked like us. So the concept of being black wasn't real to me until I came to the US.
Many deep-seated sentiments, go ahead, of dissent were brought to the forefront recently in a viral article that attempted to call out Black Americans for appropriating African culture. Oh! No, not Afrik! No, not Mutobu! You mean to tell me they want you to take off them dashikis and kente cloth? The black man in America is putting on their African clothing, trying to, as he say, put on his ancient black roots. But the African is saying, you ain't one of us, and you ain't a part of us, and we're gonna change how we do things to make sure we show you are not one of us.
I've heard quite a few times of African men making comments about how lazy African Americans are, how African Americans don't take advantage of the opportunities that's here in America. Now, I recently made a video, Message to the Black Woman, and I said some things in there. I addressed some issues that I see happening within the black community among black women. And see, I can make those comments. You know, other brothers like myself can make those comments. But African men and African women have no opinion, none whatsoever, because you don't understand our plight. You don't understand what we had to deal and face here in America because of the fact that our so-called ancestors had their hands in slavery. Yeah, it was your ancestors also that put us in the condition that we're in now. So for you to come to America and have an opinion on how you view African Americans is wrong. You have no say in that. You have nothing to say to us.
African American women are lazy, okay? At least that's what I was told. Yeah, so I'm at class and a former student comes who owns a salon now, and she's from Jamaica. The reason I tell you she's from Jamaica is so you can know that she's black too. And she comes and she says, she comes to meet me. My instructor introduces her to me because I'm like literally the only African American woman at my school. Everyone else is from somewhere else. And, you know, he was just telling her, you know, how hard I work, blah, 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 those types of just good things he was trying to tell her, because she was under the impression that African American women are lazy. And she came into the practical area while we were working in class or after theory, and she's like, oh, what a fresh, you know, like it's just refreshing to meet someone who isn't lazy, you know, to be African American, because African American women are lazy. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, is she really saying this to me in front of people?
Immigrants like Mr. Boyag and Ms. Imari say they still identify more as African than as black or African American. Many black immigrants do not identify with the historical experiences of discrimination encountered by blacks in the United States. The younger African immigrants tend to be less consciously black and are somewhat reticent to link their fates with the history and contemporary protest traditions of African Americans. Selma doesn't exactly cut it for them, he said. They think they're better than black people. James Carroll, a retired Army specialist standing in front of a busy convenience store, said of the West African immigrants, "We're supposed to be one community, we're supposed to be able to get along, but they don't give it a chance."
Today I am pleased to sign S-358, the Immigration Act of 1990. It is the most comprehensive reform of our immigration laws in 66 years. And nearly all Americans have ancestors who braved the oceans, liberty-loving risk-takers in search of an ideal. The largest voluntary migrations in recorded history. There we go. Well done.
A lot of times that people from Haiti and Jamaica, they will center their places on the East Coast, whereas black immigrants from Africa tend to spread around the country as more. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
So that's largely because
people tend to move where they can find a community. And so when people migrate now, they look for communities of people that are where they're from. So, for example, there's a large Cape Verdean community in Boston and Providence. There's a large Ethiopian community and Eritrean community in Washington, D.C. So migrants tend to move where they'll be able to find communities.
Are you African American?
It's a complicated question.
Yes, I am an African American. I'm a true African American.
More Haitian American than African American, but more American than Haitian.
The Ivy League schools in our sample had 40% of the black students were of immigrant origin.
And the question whether or not African immigrants and other black immigrants should benefit from affirmative action.
The way liberals have treated blacks like children, and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks, at least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks.
The African Immigrant Caucus, AIC, comprising community, clergy, and business leaders, was launched in 2013 to create a united and powerful diaspora voice in the Washington metro area. To tell us more about the AIC, I'm joined by Reverend Kemi Onanuga, African Immigrant Caucus member from Maryland. Welcome, Reverend.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, I'm aware that a few days over the weekend, you actually brought together about, what, 2,000
Yes.
African immigrants here. What was the purpose of that conference?
The purpose of the conference was to launch the African Immigrant Caucus. Over the last 7-8 months, leaders within the caucus have been working behind the scene to build a relationship so that it makes it possible for Africans to come together beyond the ethnic, regional, and belief boundaries so that we can come together and have a voice. So we've been creating that platform.
Tonight we will ask each candidate how they, not their staff, will relate to us Africans if elected governor. We will be asking them to spend half a day with us before the start of the General Assembly in order to get to know us and to hear our top issues.
I've been reading books by Africans, meeting with Africans. I grew up here in this area, Washington, D.C. I grew up in Chevy Chase, live in Bethesda. Have been meeting with and getting to know the African community all through my career here in Maryland, and watching the African community grow and watching the African community strengthen itself.
lot of people off the back think I'm black. I am Dominican, but when somebody asks me if they're black, I automatically think that they're asking me African American, which I'm not. I think it's two totally different cultures. They come from the same ancestry as, you know, Africa, obviously, but I mean, we're like 400 years removed. So what point are we just gonna say American and Dominican? How I look on the outside doesn't necessarily mean I'm the same culturally as somebody else who's the same complexion as me.
Just because you're black doesn't mean you're African American. I used to identify as Caribbean American.
During Caribbean American Heritage Month, South Floridians from all over the Caribbean basin fly their native nation's colors high, all which are entwined in the fabric of this community. Haitian Americans are the largest group of Caribbean settlers, followed by Jamaicans. Jamaican-born attorney Marlon Hill tracks the growing influence of the culture here. As more Caribbean Americans become citizens, voters are electing more Caribbean-born politicians in cities like Miramar, North Miami, and Lauderhill. Caribbean American leaders have also been pushing for a Caribbean definition on the census form. Since the Caribbean islands were settled by so many different cultures, it's often hard for descendants to define themselves by race on any form.
Bring in former presidential campaign advisor Ford O'Connell and Corinne Jean-Pierre. She is the former deputy campaign manager for Martin O'Malley. Thank you both for joining us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Atima Omara, president of the Young Democrats of America, the nation's largest youth partisan political organization. As many of you know, when I first sought this office, I spoke of my family story and the odds against someone like me ever holding an office like this as the daughter of African immigrants. And now, only one generation later, a testament to the hard work and love of my parents, I stand before you, the first African American to be president in the 82-year history of the Young Democrats of America.
Before I came to New York, I lived in Nigeria. In 1987, my father died. My father was a well-known Nigerian engineer. Our family was very, very wealthy. But at the time, the Nigerian government was very corrupt. And so they stripped our family of absolutely everything. So we went from very wealthy to poor. My mother moved my brother and I to the United States, and I grew up in the Bronx, inner city. In 2013, I was approached by a woman by the name of Catherine Humphreys, and she works with her husband, Harry Humphreys, who's worked with Michael Bay since The Rock in '96. And then fast forward to 2016, Catherine called me. She said, I'm helping cast for this new movie, Transformers Last Night. I said, would you be available to do it? Get to set, Michael Bay shows up, the entire crew shows up, and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. Went our separate ways the next day. Later, I was contacted by someone at production, and they said Michael Bay wants to upgrade you to a principal role in the film.
7 years. So all you can ever count on as an organization from a star player. You draft him in the first round, most likely he's a lottery pick. He blows up, he becomes the face of your franchise. Welcome back to the show!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great night for us. We're always excited on the show to find new, talented voices that can contribute to our program. So we are very pleased to welcome our newest contributor from South Africa, Mr. Trevor Noah. Trevor, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Who are you?
It's you. You're a gunslinger, right?
There are no gunslingers. Not anymore.
Son, this ain't just about you. Like all black men, you have a bullseye on your back.
I won't deny it.
They are gonna give you the tools that you need to destroy yourself.
And your parents are from Ghana?
Yeah, Ghana, West Africa.
And so, you know, we often talk here in the office about whenever you're a parent, you're first generation, that you're expected to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant.
Which is real.
What was it like when you came to your parents and say, I want to be an actor?
I didn't have like that Peter Parker moment.
Tired of this dating stuff? Oh, sorry. I'm one of the best lawyers they have. I can't just roll up to the partners like, hey guys, I accidentally noticed that y'all pay me less than this white guy. That's why I make sure. Can you teach me how to hoe? That's rude. And yes.
The world is changing. Soon, there will only be the conquered by a good man. Step into the spotlight with a good heart. And it's hard for a good man to be.
You got your toothbrush?
Check.
Do you have your deodorant?
Check.
Do you have your cozy clothes?
Got that.
What?
Do they know I'm black?
Should they?
You might wanna,
Mom and Dad, my black boyfriend will be coming up this weekend. I just don't want you to be shocked that he's a black man.
Name of the horror movie that's out right now?
Oh, Get Out.
Get Out.
You
Get
saw
Out
it?
ain't gonna be
Have
there.
you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet,
Okay.
but I plan to see it. That's a whole nother story.
Wait, what?
No, I think it's great. I know the young brother is in the movie, and he's British. So there are a lot of black British actors that work
All
in this
the
country.
time.
All the time. All the time. So I tend to wonder, what would that movie have been with an American brother who really understands that in a way? Because, I mean, Daniel grew up in a country where, they've been interracial dating for 100 years, What would a brother from America have made of that role? Some things are universal, but everything ain't.
That's right.
What
What is that casting thing where you get the British black actor versus the American black actor to play the black? What is that?
They're cheaper than us for one thing.
Huh.
They don't cost as much.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
In an interesting way, unless you're, unknown brother that they find in some way. And they think they're better trained for some reason than we are because they're classically trained. I don't know. They come here because, there are more opportunities and they actually get paid when they work here. They make more money in this country than they do in that country, which is fine, I mean, how long did it take you to figure out, Strike a Bell wasn't, just a brother from Baltimore?
Right.
Until you heard
Stringer,
you heard Idris talking, you go,
wait a minute.
Hold up. For real? Everybody needs to work, but there's a lot of brothers here that need to work too. There's a lot of brothers here that need to work too. don't know if I was misunderstood. I mean, I say things, and I just tend to talk, and when I speak about actors from the UK coming to America to work, I mean, I understand they have a greater facility for doing that, number one, because they can come here and they can adapt U.S. accents, and they work very well, and they work very hard, and they're very competent workers. We're not afforded that same luxury, but that's fine. I mean, we have plenty of opportunities here to work, and for them to come here, it gives them a greater platform and a greater opportunity to succeed, and hopefully go home and create opportunities for their countrymen. So I enjoy watching, British actors coming here. I enjoy their work. I enjoy working with them when I have the opportunity to do that. So it was not a slam against them. It was just a comment about how, Hollywood works in an interesting sort of way sometimes.
And the Oscar goes to Lupita Nyong'o.
Thank you to the Academy for this incredible recognition. It doesn't escape me for one moment that so much joy in my life is thanks to so much pain in someone else's.
Not long ago, I had a comedian on the show, W. Kamau Bell. He was here at HuffPost Live, and being a black man in the entertainment industry, I asked his thoughts on Lupita Nyong'o's overwhelming popularity. Here's what we said. One more Lupita question, because it's bigger than her. She seems like the next thing that white people like.
Yes.
Like she's become like a fetish already.
Yeah.
Does that worry you?
I'm less worried because she seems to know that. She seems to have an awareness of that, which is why the speech she gave was so amazing. She seems to have an awareness of wanting to own herself, you know, so, no pun intended, 12 years a slave. But she seems to have an awareness of that, and it's good if white people want to own you. It's just bad when they actually do.
Right. Where did you get the sense that I was saying she was an overnight success?
She is not receiving any more attention than what Jennifer Lawrence received when she won her Oscar, what Julia Roberts received when she won her Oscar. So you're trying to make it seem as if the attention that's being given to Lupita is somehow abnormal, and it speaks to your white supremacy inside your own mind. And you absolutely are trying to control black women.
The reason why you're seeing this celebration of Lupita is because we don't get it. We're not getting the affirmation of our black beauty by black men. I mean, I can tell you, me personally, my affirmation of my beauty came from outside of the community. I mean, people weren't, I'm not even as dark as Lupita, but let's just be frank. The community needs to clean its own house and deal with the colorism before they start being so concerned about what white people are doing.
In a video posted on Facebook, actress Jada Pinkett Smith says she's boycotting the Academy Awards and won't be watching from home either. She made the dramatic announcement in the wake of a growing controversy over the lack of diversity among this year's Oscar nominees.
Begging for acknowledgement or even asking
diminishes dignity and diminishes power. And we are a dignified people.
Her husband, Will Smith, is one of the actors of color who did not get nominated this year, despite critical acclaim for his performance in Concussion. Pinkett Smith now says it's time to reevaluate things.
Maybe it is time that we pull back our resources and we put them back into our communities, into our programs.
Pinkett Smith is not alone in her frustration. On social media, many have vented over the lack of Oscar diversity. For the second straight year, the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite has been trending online. Spike Lee says he's boycotting the ceremony as well. In a post on social media, the director asks, quote, "How is it possible for the second consecutive year all 20 contenders under the actor category are white?" Both stars said they wish their friends involved in the Oscars production the best, and Pinkett Smith praised Chris Rock, who will be hosting the show next month.
What I think is so wonderful about America is the fact that it's a society of immigrants.
The notion of America not supporting immigrants to me is absurd. When you look at history, America was built on immigrants. I mean, you can go as far as back to 300-400 years. It was built by slaves at the end of the day who weren't from here. It was built by slaves at the end of the day who weren't from here.
You can trace back from trains being built, cities and industries being developed because of different influxes of people who came in. It's incredible to be a part of a culture that's just still living what we expect or think about what America is. It's fluid.
To me, when I see immigrant, when I think immigrant, I think strength, I think strong, I think triumph. My name is Lupita, and I'm an immigrant.
Today in our studio, we are very pleased to have the founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi.
I feel that this movement is quite leaderful, and so it's quite the title, but it's something that has been ascribed for many other leaders, including my sisters who are sitting beside me. But I feel that my role as a leader in this movement is really to complicate the narrative about how violence is being perpetrated against our communities. So the major problem with the anti-immigrant movement is that it undermines and effectively reverses the gains of the civil rights movement. African Americans historically fought for their rights in this country.
So, Denai, let's start with you, and we're going to have each one introduce the cast and their role in the play. But why don't you give the audience the context of the play itself?
Why I write is really quite basic. I'm a Zimbabwean American. I am an African woman, and I was outraged. I'm driven by outrage, and I was driven by the outrage that there were so few stories that reflected that experience, the experience of African women, the stories of women of African origin. So that really is my artistic mandate, is to make sure that these voices, these faces, are front and center. That really is my artistic mandate, is to make sure that these voices, these faces, are front and center in whatever I create anyway. So that's really at the core of everything I do.
with the beautiful class of Eclipse. I saw it and I loved it. I love that it's all women on the stage. I love that it's brown women. I mean, you all are representing.
Thank you. We're so excited. I'm so proud to be a nominee tonight. Our show is nominated. We have 6 nominations. Yay. And we're representing the African diaspora. We're representing women. We're thrilled to be here.
See, I got people coming. You know, one thing about this black conscious community, you know, y'all been on some fraud ass shit, and I'm finna smash all of that. You know why? I got people mad at me for revealing how Africa is worthless and how Africa is like a crackhead because she don't take care of her children. You shouldn't be mad at me. You should be mad at all the scholars for all these years that have been to Africa numerous times and know that Africa is worthless in the hellhole and is not open to you, have came back and exploited their trips to Africa and set up and have talked about going to Africa to make themselves look like this great scholar and never broke down to you all how Africa does not have open arms for you and Africa is not thinking about you. When a black person from America go to Africa, the only reason they smile at them because they are a tourist. When you go to Africa, when you go to Jamaica, when you go to Trinidad as a tourist, yeah, everybody's smiling at you, so you'll spend that American dollar or that European dollar. But if you go there to live, it is different. You must understand that I was not a traveler. I was not a tourist traveler. I was a traveler that went somewhere to live. I had a brother make a comment tomorrow, we got to go back to Africa. All right, I'm going to break that down. How in the hell are black people in America and in South and Central America and in England going to go back to Africa when Africans don't even treat each other with respect in Africa? Stop talking about Africa like Africa is in good shape and Africa is ran by decent people. Africa is ran, the countries in Africa are ran by some of the worst people ever. So the love that we have in Africa are by the poorest people that have the least power to help us. When you look in countries in Africa and you see people are dirt poor, and then you see other people making a lot of money, these are the Babylon ones that are there exploiting their people. That's why they got money. So who's going to be the ones that come to America? The one that's dirt poor, that can barely eat in Africa, or the one that's exploiting Africa, the reason the rest of their people is dirt poor? So a lot of these Africans you see from Africa, not all of them, but a lot of them you see at these parties and these celebrities, they come from the rich families, the reason Africa is suffering. They're not your friend. They're not even friend of their own African people.
Americans, you are the descendants of American slaves. America has had no other child but the slaves to build this great nation. This is a powerful country. I'm not going back to Africa. I was born in Watts, California, the hood, the real hood. I was part of the Watts riot. So why would I want to go back to Africa? And I was born here in the United States. Through slavery, our culture was created. It created the American slave culture.
Well, good morning to my Facebook friends and the descendants of American slaves. I wanted to come at you live today, just for a few minutes, share with you what's on my heart. And first off, I want to say happy holidays to everybody. This is the season to be joyous, and so I am that, and I hope you are too. But I want to talk about what has happened here just in the last few days and why I did it. I filed a charge against the United States Department of Justice, or the United States, charging them with crimes against humanity on behalf of the descendants of American slaves. Not black, not African American, but the American slave culture. And so America owes the American slave culture, the descendants of American slaves. Not black, not African American. I keep saying that because, see, black is a color, it is a description, it's an adjective. It's not a culture, it's not a nationality, it's not a race. It's not even a noun, person, place, or thing. So we've been hoodwinked. And so people that are lacking in knowledge will go along with everyone, but I'm not. And I want to educate our group. We're going to have to learn, unlearn, then relearn. Now, African American is a United States immigration term for the whites and blacks that were born on the continents of Africa, that has come to the United States legally. And they haven't gone back home. They have nationalized. They came over here to make some money and to take some money back to their country. That's that hustle, and I'm not with that. I don't even want to talk about that. I want to talk about us, Americans, because my great-great-granddaddy was born on a plantation down in St. Martinville. I done walked on the plantation. And so we are Americans. We are the descendants of American slaves. And America has had no other child but the slaves, and she's been a deadbeat parent to her firstborn and to her descendants. So we're going to get that right. America is a competitive society. All these other cultures coming to America, they ain't coming here with the same problems that we have, that we inherited since we were born in this country. And speaking on that, and I need to say this here, and I'm going to hit it every time we speak, that we are Americans. We are the descendants of American slaves. And our issue is very simple. They have covered up the American slave culture, and the United States Immigration Department is guilty of this. The U.S. Congress representative, I done went and spoke to some of them out there in Washington, and they want to keep calling us black and African Americans. But no, we are Americans. We were not properly released from the American Civil War. They didn't release us, they released us improperly. They didn't give us no type of economic emancipation, provided no type of leadership training, or how to enter into mainstream America. So the American slave culture, that is our legal name. And if you're going to deal with the United States of America, you must dot every I and cross every T. Everybody knows that in government that technically we are the American slave, but nobody wants to talk about it because America knows she has an obligation. It was a felony. It was a felony. Slavery was a felony because you stole wealth from a people. You robbed them. You raped them. And there's no statute of limitation on a felony. She created the laws and she understands that. But because we have ignorant, backward leaders that don't understand how America operates, don't understand immigration, and certainly don't understand business commerce. And so we got to change.
American Slave Nation flag is being risen in Itta-Bitta, Mississippi. And the residents from Greenwood and Itta-Bitta, Mississippi is working as a unit to put the flag up. I wish we had our rap music. The American Slave Nation flag is flying high in Itta-Bitta, Mississippi.
patriarch.